Hello and welcome back. By now you surely understand the benefits of brushes. In this video, I'll just take you through a couple more brushes, the square studs and the plaited leather strap. The plaited leather strap can also be turned into a flat shoelace with an aglet or end. I will also take you through an alternate method of color change. Sometimes I find Hue Shift and Tints in the brush's options unsatisfactory, especially if I need to match a color exactly, like the color I've used on the plaited strap. This needs to be matched to the solid fills in the shoe illustration. I'll demonstrate the square stud first. Here I will have two views of the stud, one looking at the whole stud from the top and the other from the side, as I have here in the drawing on the back of the heel. So I'll draw a square 3 mm by 3 mm. I'll draw two lines crossing through the center from corner to corner. Divide this and add shades of grey. This is now ready to add to the brush's panel. I've used a 30% spacing and auto overlap corners as I don't want these distorted, and tints and shades for colorization. For the side view, it is probably best just to watch what I do. I'll use the top view motif to do this. I know this does not look totally correct with respect to perspective, but I would prefer to keep the foregrays in this brush too. Look carefully at how I make this motif the same dimensions as the top view, 3 mm by 3 mm. First, I reset the bounding box, and then I keep the motif selected and change the size back to 3 mm square. When I create this brush, I will need to have the rectangle behind it with the center of the rectangle at the base of the motif, as I did in the pinked edge brush. So this one will be 3 mm by 6 mm. I'll add this to my brushes and follow the same properties as the top view, but here I'll go back to my auto-centered corner tile. I would like to introduce you to a new process when you apply the metal studs to the heel. In my example, you will see that I have 6 rows of evenly spaced studs on the heel of the sandal. I have used a tool called the blend tool here. This tool blends 2 or more lines depending on what you need. I have used 2 lines in my example. I also used this method to create the rows of sequins on the slide in the last video. By changing the color of the lines, I managed to create the blended color variations. Have a look here. With the stud, I'll redraw the line on the inside of the heel and move this inside the heel. I'll redraw the line at the back of the heel, and I'll put the side view of the stud here, and I'll make another copy inside the heel. I'll double-click the blend tool to activate the blend tool options. Here I'll select specified steps and put 4 steps as my quantity for this one. I will leave the orientation as the default and OK. Now I rest my cursor on the first line and you will notice an asterisk symbol, like the one when I first start drawing with the pen tool. I'll click onto the line and move the cursor across to the next line. When the addition symbol appears, I click again. Now you see the additional lines in the middle. I'll put the stud brush into the lines to check the spacing between the lines and edit the length of the lines. Once I'm happy, this is important now, I will remove the brush. See this icon here? This is necessary for me to expand the blended lines, as Illustrator reads these blended lines as an object. I can edit the lines as a blended object for smoothness of transition from one line to the next. And then I can also expand the object only. Once I've done this, I can edit the individual lines and then put the brush stroke into these. What do you think? You can also use this for multiple rows of stitching or anything that is a blend from one shape to another or one color to another, like the sequins here. Now, the plaited strap is a trim we use quite often in shoes and accessories. If not the next season, then certainly in the near future. I've racked my brain with this one to come up with a simple explanation that also looks the way I'd like it to look. I've used standard angles and motifs for easier creation. So let me start. I'll draw a rectangle 2 mm by 5 mm, and I'll curve the top left corner with my corner widget. Now I'll select the shape and transform each. This command is found in the right mouse click sub-menu or the Object drop-down menu, Transform, Transform Each. A dialog box will be activated, and here I can do a few things. I want to rotate this shape 270 degrees, reflect it and copy it. I have preview checked to see what I am doing. This command allows me to do all three actions in one. I'll move that new piece down and line it up here. I'm ready to make the repeat of this brush. Let me rotate this 45 degrees. I select the two shapes and start to rotate them. Hold the Shift key down as this locks the rotation to 180, 90 or 45. Now I'll copy this once, holding the Alt key and the Shift key at the same time, and drag this over to line up with the next anchor point here. Can you see how I line the anchor points up? The arrow goes from black to white when this snaps to point. Remember, you would have selected Snap to Point from the View drop-down menu when you first set up your AI workspace. If you do this in one move, the next two copies are easy. I'll just transform again, keyboard shortcut, Command or Control D. Now, I'll make one copy of all these motifs. I'll remove the fill from one group and the stroke from the other. I'll select all the stroke lines and expand the lines or outline the stroke. We did this in the chain brush. With the outline stroke still selected, I immediately unite all the lines using the Unite option in the Pathfinder panel. Now I'm ready to find my repeat. I'll use the fill group for this. I'll just draw a rectangle. Put a contrast fill in it and send this to the back. Zooming in, I can find the repeat. I'll go from this point to this point and adjust the rectangle to go over the width of the brush. I'll make a copy of the rectangle and move it to the stroke group. I am now going to use the Shape Builder tool to delete any shapes outside my repeat rectangles. Can you see why I turned the lines into a united shape? It's so much easier to delete the excess now. I move the stroke lines back onto the fill. Now I will make the fill color the same color as my sandal, with a deeper outline color. I create this new pattern brush without any spacing, and colorization method as none. I'm quickly checking the repeat and then adjusting the brush to the finished height I prefer. I like this to be a bit flatter, so I'll just narrow the height and reload the brush. The reason I adjust the width of the brush at the end is because it is much easier to work with simple angles like 90 degrees and 45 degrees. Have a look at the new plaited brush in a line. I'm going to introduce you to a different way to change colors of this brush now. As you know, I prefer my plaited leather brush to be the exact and correct color of the solid colors I am using in this sandal. So I'll draw a line and apply the original plaited leather brush to it. I'll draw a rectangle and fill it with the new color and a deeper stroke color. I've used a deeper color to look like a shadow, just to differentiate the inside from the outside straps. I now select both the line with the brush stroke and the rectangle with the new colors in it. I'll go to Edit, Edit Colors, Recolor Artwork. A dialog box is activated, and here you can simply swap colors. There is also a fast access color wheel in the option bar over here. Do you see how all the colors you have selected are laid out in rows? All I need to do is swap the colors by dragging them from one line to the other. This substitutes the color in the original brush for the darker color. Once you accept the color change, the new color brush will automatically be loaded into the brush panel. I use this process when I want my colors to match perfectly. It is not always necessary to be this fussy, but in this case, I would highly recommend it. In this lesson, you have learned some slightly more complex brushes and two new amazing time-saving methods. 1. Using the blend tool for multiple rows of lines and objects. And 2. Quick color change when color precision matters on brushes. This now concludes the pattern brushes in this module. I will be demonstrating the art brushes in lesson 4. Please don't hesitate to ask me any questions in the space below. If you have a particular brush you would like me to look at, please feel free to request this. I always love a challenge. See you in lesson 4.